Democrats want you to be sick, unhappy, and mentally ill.
Mr. Reagan.
Leftists want you to be sick. They want you to be unhappy. And they even want you to be mentally ill. And here's the thing. Sick people, unhappy people, and mentally ill people, they all tend to vote Democrat. But let's start with the most outlandish part of this. Democrats want you to be mentally ill. Have a look at this. Leftists are massively more likely to be diagnosed with mental illness. And so this begs the question, which came first, the leftism or the mental illness? And I know what you're going to say. It's the same thing, Chris. It's the same thing. And yeah, okay, agreed. But leftism as yet has not been defined by science as a mental illness, absurd as that might seem. But so which is it? Well, I suspect that the mental illness comes first. I think mentally ill people are just drawn to the Democrat Party. This is because the Democrat Party is all about taking care of you. The state will take care of you. The state will coddle you and it will protect you. Republicans, we're all about independence, responsibility, and self-reliance. Democrats are mom. Republicans are dad. And when you are a total wreck, strung out, hungover, wallowing in the depths of depression, confused, lonely, sad, tired, you don't want dad telling you to get up, stand up straight, brush yourself off, go get a job. No, you want mom to tuck you into bed and bring you a bowl of chicken soup. The less able someone is to care for themselves, the more paranoid they are, the less control they feel they have over their own lives, the less healthy they are, and the poorer they are, the more likely they are to want the government to take care of them. And it's the Democrats who are always telling everyone, it's okay if you're struggling, mommy, big government will take care of you. And it's the Republican who says, be healthy, be successful, become independent. You don't need government. And so the more Americans there are who are confident and awesome, the more likely it is that our elected officials will be Republican. But the more Americans there are who are suffering from mental instability, the more likely it is that our elected officials will be Democrat. And so it's actually rational, though insanely sinister, for Democrats to take on a political strategy to make women unhappy. So are they actually doing this? I don't know, but I think they might be. I will explain in one moment. First, of course, I have to sell you something. Chances are you've been here before. The chaos in the markets, oil and stocks. Just when you thought it was safe and interest rates were rising, new threats come out of nowhere. Tensions are boiling from Asia to Europe. Adaptation is the key here to safeguarding your wealth. You may not have considered gold before, but listen, it's not speculation. This is insurance. And right now, you need some insurance. Noble Gold Investments have been protecting investors from disaster for years with precious metals. So if you're worried, it might be time to take a fresh look at gold and silver. Gold is a proven safe haven shield for your portfolio and a volatility balance against uncertainty. If it helps, Noble Gold Investments is offering a free 3-ounce silver American Virtue coin with its new IRAs this month. If you open your Noble Gold Investments IRA or 401k rollover, you can claim your coin today. Remember, crisis brews, portfolios waver, gold insulates. Secure yourself against the threats. Go to noblegoldinvestments.com right now, noblegoldinvestments.com, the only gold company I trust. So, have Democrat politicians, radical left activists, and leftists in the media taken on a political strategy of making women mentally ill? Well, maybe. It is sometimes in the best interest of certain organizations that people are miserable. It has been observed by many that the pharmaceutical companies have perverse incentives. It's more profitable to create treatments for lifelong illnesses than it is to create cures. You can only sell a patient a cure once, but you can sell a patient a treatment for decades. And in the case of the Democrat Party, as I've explained, this is also true. Americans suffering from mental illness are just more likely to vote Democrat. So Democrats will naturally want more mental illness. And unfortunately, there are people in this world so evil that they will see this as an opportunity to capitalize on the suffering of Americans. And they will create even more suffering. It's like the Democrats always say, never let a crisis go to waste.
Never waste a good crisis.
And here's the really weird thing. In the past few years, mental illness has become trendy.
There is an alarming new trend of teens turning to social media to diagnose themselves.
One Valley therapist says he's seen a sharp increase of kids believing they had everything from OCD to ADHD, even depression and Tourette's. And as Team 12's Michael Doudna shows us, the teens don't have those disorders at all.
On TikTok, the hashtag mental health has been searched more than 67 billion times.
If you've got ADHD, autism, or you have ADHD,
Let's talk about suicide awareness.
This time has been super difficult for all of us.
The search became a serious problem for Samantha Fridley.
Originally, it was more mental health advocacy. It turned into diagnosis.
As a high schooler who was already seeing a therapist for anxiety and depression, Fridley watched countless videos of influencers sharing thoughts on mental health conditions. Soon, she started to believe she was bipolar, had borderline personality disorder, and ADHD. According to one analysis of popular TikTok videos about ADHD, 52% were deemed misleading.
And you were self-diagnosing.
Mm-hmm.
Were you diagnosed with any of these? Never.
I had a friend who posted this one flowchart of how an ADHD person sort of thinks.
Juliana Dodds has been on a voyage of self-discovery for years.
And it was like, that's me. Maybe I have ADHD.
Juliana is one of millions who engage with ADHD and neurodiversity content online.
A massive influx of people who think they have ADHD.
So I'm Annie Crow and I am an autistic ADHDer, late diagnosed.
They're calling it a horoscope effect, where I'm predicting it's going to happen, so therefore it happens. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
For example, the hashtag Tourette's on TikTok has 5.3 billion views. And while parts of the hashtag do raise awareness and reduce stigma, kids who believe they have a condition can develop very real symptoms.
Kids are suggestible to the point where they can pick up facial tics because they've watched enough videos about it.
So at the end of the day, how do you treat something that is self-created?
That's the thing, and it's so tricky because they have all the symptoms of the issue. They don't actually have that issue, though.
So kids are now calling themselves neurodivergent.
I'm divergent.
And kids today actually want to be neurodivergent because it has become something that makes them feel special. They think that if they're neurodivergent, it means that their brains just work a little different than everybody else, and maybe, just maybe, they work a little bit better than everybody else. And that is a very seductive idea. It makes them feel special. And I think this stems from a trend in the 90s and, in the early 2000s to destigmatize mental illness. Parents, teachers, doctors, and folks in the media, they weren't just saying, it's okay to suffer from mental illness. You don't have to be ashamed of that. No, they were actually telling kids suffering from mental illness might actually make you better than other people. It might mean you're special.
Neurodiversity exists, just like diversity exists in ethnicity, gender, and sexual orientation. Advocating for the acceptance of the autism spectrum is reflecting natural variations in the human brain rather than a disease that needs to be cured. This movement has grown within the autism community as well as to other neurodivergent folks. Hi, I have ADHD.
The Harvard Business Review released a study that found that people on the spectrum are 20% more productive than their neurotypical peers if they're given the right environment and right opportunities.
Neurodivergent folks have a very rich inner life. We often feel things very deeply. Our emotions and our thought processes matter to us, and we consider them thoroughly. Like I said before, we notice subtleties a lot better than neurotypical people most of the time. Welcome to the neurodivergent community.
Now, we used to say this as a joke. He's special. But at some point, it stopped being a euphemism and it started being believed literally. But not just that. There is now so many kids who claim to be neurodivergent that it's become a subculture. Now, subcultures develop when there are a lot of people who don't feel like they fit into the mainstream. It's something that people join in order to get a sense of belonging.
I feel really like I am understood, like somebody else gets it, like somebody else has been able to put it to words, this feeling.
But this subculture is particularly pernicious because I suspect that by tricking these kids into convincing themselves that they're crazy, I think some of them actually become crazy. And we all know that TikTok, a Chinese company, has been proven to be harmful for children. And yet, the politicians in DC have done nothing about this. It's almost as if these politicians are benefited by reducing these children's quality of life. It's almost as if they're in the business of human suffering. And here's another example. Being gay or trans is closely associated with depression, mental illness, and unhappiness.
LGBT people still suffer with higher levels of depression, anxiety, addictions, and suicide. I know because I'm one of them.
And the left, for years, have tried to normalize aberrant sexual behavior. And they never acknowledge that this can make people truly miserable, that this can drive people to develop mental illnesses. They always claim that the reason gay men or transgender women have these unusually high rates of mental illness is because of the stigmatization that they experience from an intolerant society. And yet, society has been celebrating LGBTQ crap for decades. So that is clearly not true. And so why? I mean, if you really care about gay men, why not recognize that homosexuality may sometimes cause mental illness? Well, because I don't think they do care about these gay men. I think they want these men to be miserable. I think that they want these men to suffer from mental illness. I don't want to get into a debate about the value of antidepressants, but I've heard some things. And I've also heard that they are becoming wildly overprescribed in America.
The number of prescriptions for antidepressants has gone up 8 times over the past 3 decades to about 1.7 billion daily doses a year.
The main kind of antidepressant are the SSRIs.
The thing is, they do, the way they work kind of is they sort of make the pain go away, but they also make the happiness go away. And so you can end up feeling a bit sort of dead inside.
No one actually knows what goes on in the brain during depression and how antidepressants influence the psyche. The 2022 study concludes that drugs only show significantly stronger effects than a placebo in just 15% of patients.
This is the kind of thing that you think politicians wanting to improve the quality of life of ordinary Americans that they'd want to tackle, but nope. And consider the fentanyl epidemic. Drug addictions can destroy many people's lives. This is about as common knowledge gets. And so naturally, to control what comes across our border, that border needs to be closed. But what did Democrats do as soon as they got into power? The border essentially evaporated. No more border. Bring in whatever illegal drugs you want into America. One very well-established path toward happiness, contentment, and improved quality of life is the acceptance and active practice of Christianity. And yet Democrats have essentially declared war on Christianity. If you're a Christian, you're likely to vote Republican. And what is Christianity all about? Christianity is all about love. Love your brother, love your neighbor, love your enemy. It's all about love and forgiveness and peace and joy. So naturally, Democrats are all against that. If you want a society to be utterly miserable, a great way to accomplish that goal would be to draw that society away from Christianity. And leftists have developed an entirely new culture in America, grievance culture. Americans are encouraged to examine their lives, consider what's wrong with it, and then to blame someone else. In particular, that blame tends to be leveled at straight white men. Are you a woman and you're unhappy? It's because of straight white men. Are you black and unhappy? Well, it's because of straight white men. Are you gay and unhappy? Well, that is because of straight white men. And this grievance culture, I think, it makes some people desperately miserable. I think in some extreme cases, grievance culture alone has probably ruined some people's lives. And you know what also makes people happy? Good health. Healthy people are naturally happier people.
If you take care of your physical health, it has huge benefits.
You see, our mood, our happiness, and our feelings of mental health are almost entirely controlled by our brain chemistry, this complex cocktail of hormones in our head. Exercise can immediately and acutely make us feel happier. Find something you enjoy and do more of it. People that enjoy exercising keep doing it. And those that keep doing it not only reap all of the short-term benefits I mentioned earlier, they tend to be the ones that achieve the greatest long-term improvements in health and their physiques.
Now, I happen to believe that it's much easier to be healthy if you're already happy, and being in a good, healthy, romantic relationship also makes you happy.
And then the big surprising finding is relationships not just keeping us happier, but keeping us healthier and helping us live longer.
Being married, in particular, has a large impact on how long people live.
There's one study, I think it's pretty well respected, that suggests that married men live 12 years longer on average than unmarried men, and married women live 7 years longer on average than unmarried women.
But being fit and attractive makes it easier to land a high-quality romantic partner. So it's like a love, health, and happiness circle. But I think all these things feed into each other, and so it's more like a Jenga tower, each piece relying on the others to stay up. But when you pull one of those Jenga pieces out, the whole thing can fall apart. And so, of course, leftists will tell you that obesity is healthy.
You be fat and fit. One doctor says yes in a controversial new book called The Obesity Paradox, when thinner means sicker and heavier means healthier.
But the body positivity movement preaches that fat is now fabulous.
This has come to a head recently with lots of media attention ever since Cosmopolitan put out their magazine with on the cover an obese woman doing yoga with the title, "This is Healthy." I don't like that Cosmopolitan article said this is healthy. That is not a true statement, and that is going to mislead a lot of people into a false sense of confidence.
I have no desire in me to change my body in any way. I like when my butt gets a little bigger. I agree with you on that one.
Not at all.
See, this is where we're gonna get, because I will tell you, not every big person wants to be small.
Do I feel like there are people in the body positive community that say, well, I'm just happy being fat and I'm just gonna lay down and just do that? Yeah, absolutely.
So, intentional weight loss, so you purposely saying, I want to lose 20 pounds, is fat phobic.
What if we told you this woman might be more fit than some of those size 2s?
I want to talk about this big myth about fat and health, which is that fat is unhealthy and weight loss is healthy.
Once you say this is healthy, now you've crossed over to the line of science, and we have studies we can fall back on to answer that question. And that's going to be more strongly correlated with risk of dying and risk of comorbid conditions, especially cardiovascular disease, diabetes, other metabolic conditions.
And what has been the goal of Democrats since at least the Clinton administration? Nationalized healthcare, socialized medicine. And one way to get there is to reduce the health of the population so significantly that the cost of private healthcare simply becomes overwhelming. And it doesn't have to be that way for all Americans, just enough so that there's a groundswell of support for nationalizing the healthcare system. Are you too sick and poor to take care of yourself? Worry not, the government will take care of you.
I've always felt the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
At this point, poor, gullible Democrat voters, they hardly stand a chance. The left has truly brainwashed them. Democrat voters are totally convinced that anthropogenic climate change will destroy the planet.
The world is going to end in 12 years if we don't address climate change.
Climate hysteria actually drives people toward mental illness in a variety of ways. Some people become obsessed.
In Vail, Colorado, the nation's busiest ski resort was hit today by a fire. Arson is suspected.
You may have heard of the Earth Liberation Front. The Attorney General himself says it's a domestic terrorist organization. The FBI says it is one of the most dangerous groups in the country.
In 2001, I was involved with the Earth Liberation Front, and I was involved in 2 separate arsons in 1 year.
Sometimes when you see things you love being destroyed, you just want to destroy those things.
And none of this is an accident. Climate hysteria is intentional. Driving people to mental illness over concerns about climate change is a feature, not a bug. I mean, look, Democrats know that their ideas are breaking people. Earlier this year, in April, 25-year-old Connor Sturgeon walked into the bank where he worked in Louisville, Kentucky, and he shot 12 of his fellow employees, killing 5. Sturgeon had scribbled out a 13-page manifesto, and this guy was very clearly brainwashed by the left. He wanted to target, quote, upper-class white people, and he wanted his attack to spur on gun control legislation. In March of this year, 28-year-old Audrey Elizabeth Hale walked into Covenant Private Christian School in Nashville, Tennessee, and she murdered 6 people, including 3 9-year-old children.
Hallie Scraggs, William Kinney, and Evelyn Dykehouse, all just 9 years old.
This was the most shocking and horrific act of domestic terrorism this country had seen in many years. Hale also left a manifesto, and hers read like a radical left critical theory seminar. She, of course, referenced white privilege, and she identifies herself as a male, calling herself Aiden. And look, I don't think it's that easy to brainwash a person, especially to brainwash them to such an extent that they are willing to commit acts of terrorism. Because you know what? The truth is often very simple and very obvious. And yet they reject the truth And they passionately adopt nonsense about climate change and gun control and transgenderism and systemic racism and white privilege. This brainwashing works because it's being repeated every day, all day by politicians, the news media, Hollywood, in public schools and universities, and from a million other sources. This manipulation is very strong. Consider this. In order to believe Democrat lies, most people have to do more than just passively listen to Democrats. They have to actively ignore their own life experience. And they have to reject the truths that are readily apparent. There's a great example of this. I have a buddy who grew up in the same place that I did. Years later, we met up. And he was, a leftist. He believed in systemic racism. He believed that white people all over the country were racists. And I said to him, you grew up in the same place I did. I never met a racist. My whole life growing up, I never met anyone who was racist against black people. Did you? And he thought about it for a second and he goes, no, I never did. And I said, so how is it possible that there's all these white racists all over the country that CNN talks about? It doesn't exist. It's not real. But he didn't care. He just said, well, maybe they're not the kind of people I would meet. Or maybe they don't live here, but they maybe live in other parts of the country. And I'm like, no, they don't. They don't live anywhere. They're invented by CNN. People have to ignore their own life experience to believe Democrat lies. Self-deception, delusion, this is a kind of mental illness. And this is at the core of Democrat political strategy. Democrats rely on people to lie to themselves. Democrats are like the devil. They prey on human weakness. And so the more weak Americans that exist, the more Democrat voters they can create. Democrats want welfare check recipients. They want people who are too sick to function. They want despondent people. They want the mentally ill. They want as many people as possible to rely on the federal government. And so if you're happy and you're healthy and you're fit and you're successful, well, they aim to change that. The Democrat Party says, don't work, be lazy, be poor, rely on welfare. Be fat, be sick, rely on medications from the pharmaceutical companies. Allow your physical health, your financial health, and your mental health to deteriorate. It's fine. The government will take care of you. Leftists in general, and feminists in particular, have told women for years that they should all have abortions whenever they want. Okay, so now this woman kills her own baby, and so now they have to vote Democrat forever, because voting Republican would be an acknowledgement that what they did was wrong. If they vote Democrat, it's just a cluster of cells. But if they vote Republican, they killed their baby. Feminists have told women that there is no consequence to abortion, but we know that this can destroy a woman's mental health.
When I first walked out of the abortion clinic, I had such an empty feeling. I don't know if I've ever felt that empty in my life.
Some women go into meltdown immediately after an abortion procedure, and others can keep things buttoned down for a long time, and I was one of those. But there was a deadness and a flatness and a grayness to my life that I just could no longer deny. An abortion choice, this kind of grief, is particularly difficult because we've brought it on ourselves, and it is our own child that is lost at our own hand. It is a profoundly disturbing topic, and so women are not talking.
But these so-called feminists, they clearly do not care about the mental health of women because they encourage them to kill their own babies. Feminism is not about empowering women. It's about controlling women. Having a family, making a beautiful home, preparing delicious meals for the family, these are things that have made women happy for thousands of years. Feminists came along and they said, you know what, those things, they don't make you happy. They make you miserable. If you want to be happy, you do what we tell you to do. Feminism has nothing to do with improving the lives of women. Feminism is about total control and manipulation. And feminism has completely deteriorated the mental health of women across America. Men's mental health is connected to what we choose to do. Women's mental health is connected to what they're convinced to do. So women have to be much more careful about who they let influence them. Parents need to teach their daughters how to ignore and reject bad influences. All right, so now we got this nation full of young people who are mostly borderline mentally ill. And then we lock them down with something like COVID, and they hit a tipping point. Suddenly, they are reliant on antidepressants, and they're voting Democrat for the rest of their lives. To fix this, we need to simply teach the fundamentals. Spiritual health, be a good Christian. Mental health, maintain good relationships with your family and your friends. Physical health, good diet and exercise. Financial health, work hard and with integrity. And find a purpose in life. At the end of the day, I truly believe that there's one thing that above all else can improve mental health, and that is confidence. And in order to be confident, you just need two things. You need to recognize your value in society, and you need to recognize your own shortcomings. That's it. But you do need both. If you are too arrogant and you think that you're the best at everything, well, you're delusional. Deep down, you know you're lying to yourself. This is not true confidence. This is self-delusion, and you are psychologically sick. And if you focus exclusively on your shortcomings, well, I think the problems with that are obvious. But, some people, they're actually not that impressive. In fact, this is probably true of most young people. And so for these young people, there is a third factor, a third ingredient to developing a healthy confidence, and that is excellence. Be excellent. That is, improve yourself. Become outstanding in some way. Strive to be the best at whatever it is that you're the most naturally inclined towards. Our culture has shifted toward this insane idea that everybody is special and that you don't need to be good at anything. You don't need to be impressive. You don't need to achieve anything. You don't need to excel. You don't even need to produce any effort in your life. You're magic, just the way you are. We used to call the entitled young people who bought into this crap snowflakes. And this was a totally appropriate label. But you know what? This attitude, this idea still saturates our culture. Improving yourself, becoming impressive, this is a great way to improve your confidence. And it seems obvious, but I think it's sometimes overlooked these days. And finding a purpose in this life, this will almost certainly build that confidence along with striving for excellence. So simple, but I think great advice to ameliorate the mental illness crisis in America today. Find your purpose and strive for excellence. Let's make America excellent again. All right, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Do you think Democrats are intentionally making people sick, unhappy, and mentally ill? Or do you think I'm way off here? Thanks for staying till the end with me, guys. Remember to buy all my overpriced crap at Teespring and throw some money my way via a super thanks or, here on YouTube or through Patreon. Let's keep this channel alive so we can keep trying to save the world. Until next time, remember, it's not that our liberal friends are ignorant, it's just they know so much that is not so. Good night.
The destiny of man is not measured by material computations. When great forces are on the move in the world, we learn we're spirits, not animals. There's something going on in time and space and beyond time and space, which, whether we like it or not, spells duty.